Have you ever just stood in front of your closet and, really looked at your clothes? I mean, beyond just what you're going to wear today. Because there's so much more than just fabric and thread. They're a language, they're a history book, they tell a story of who we are and where we've come from. So today, we're going to decode those stories, the ones woven right into our women's wear.
Coco Chanel put it perfectly. She said, dress shabbily and they remember the dress impeccably and they remember the woman. And wow, what a powerful idea, right? It's this idea that our clothing can either get in our way or it can become this seamless part of who we are. It's a tool for being remembered for you.
Okay, so that's what we remember. But it begs the question, what does the dress itself remember? What stories of society, of revolution, of technology are stitched right into its seams? Well, let's find out.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll get our terms straight. Then we'll dive into why we even wear clothes in the first place. We'll look at some wild moments when style just defied all logic, see how the 20th century turned everything upside down, and then we'll pull back the curtain on the fashion system of today.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, more than just clothes. Before we get too deep, we got to make sure we're all speaking the same language. It's funny, we throw around words like fashion and apparel like they're the same thing, but they're really not. Apparel is the stuff, the actual garments, the physical things we put on our bodies. But fashion is the idea. It's a social process. It's the style that's popular at a certain time. One is the object, the other is the spirit of the age.
Okay, so now that we've got that straight, let's get back to basics, like really basic. Why did we even start wearing clothes in the first place? What was the original motivation?
Well, sociologists and historians pretty much agree that it all boils down to four primary drivers. You can think of them as the pillars of our wardrobe: protection, ritual, adornment, and identification.
First up, protection. And yeah, this is the big one, the no-brainer. Clothes are our first line of defense against, well, everything. Just think of the fur-lined parkas in the Arctic, or the light, airy cotton robes people wear in the Sahara. It's our portable shelter.
But it's not just about surviving the weather. Clothes can literally transform us. That's where ritual comes in. In a play or a ceremony, a costume isn't just a costume. It can turn an everyday person into a king, a different persona, or even a god. It's a way of stepping out of one identity and into another.
And then, of course, there's just the sheer joy of looking good, right? That's adornment. It's this deep, fundamental human need to decorate ourselves to express our own personal style and beauty. People have been doing it since, well, forever.
And last but not least, identification. Think about it. Your clothes speak for you before you even open your mouth. They're like a visual shortcut that tells the world about your status, your job, your role in society. A uniform, a suit, a wedding dress, it's all a form of nonverbal communication.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. What happens when those drivers, especially adornment and identification, kind of go off the rails? When style completely overpowers common sense? Well, that's what this next section is all about.
I mean, get a load of this. The poulain shoe. In medieval Europe, how important you were was directly related to how long the toe of your shoe was. It got so out of hand that nobles were walking around with shoe points that were up to 24 inches long. That's 2 feet. It got so ridiculous they had to pass actual laws to limit the length.
And believe me, this was not a one-off thing. Just look at the Victorian corset, which squeezed a woman's ribs to create that tiny waist, literally making it hard to breathe. Or the pannier from the 18th century, a huge frame that made skirts so wide that women couldn't even fit through doorways. In both cases, the message was loud and clear. Looking a certain way was way more important than, moving or breathing.
All right, so after all that history of impracticality, everything changed. The 20th century hit, and it brings us to a major turning point, the Great Wardrobe Shift. This period didn't just tweak fashion, it blew it up and started over.
Think about it, for most of human history, if you wanted new clothes, someone had to make them for you. But in the 20th century, with women joining the workforce and huge demand for things like military uniforms, the whole system changed. This was the birth of ready-to-wear. Suddenly, you could just go to a store and buy clothes off the rack. It was a revolution.
And you can see this whole story play out beautifully in the evolution of Indian women's wear. In the early 1900s, British styles led to the creation of the stitched sari blouse. By the 40s, the homespun fabric khadi became this powerful symbol of Indian independence. And then in the 60s,
That same global youth culture that gave us the miniskirt, it was echoed in India with shorter kameez and tighter churidars. Fashion wasn't just reflecting history, it was right there in the middle of it.
So all that history, all that change, it built the world we live in now. Which leads us to our last stop, the modern fashion system. Let's deconstruct the clothes we wear today.
You ever get that feeling like suddenly a certain color is just everywhere? That's not an accident. It's a whole industry called trend forecasting. These are people whose entire job is to analyze culture and predict what we're all going to want to wear, sometimes a year and a half before it even shows up in a store.
So what are these forecasters and designers actually looking at? Well, they're playing with three key elements. First, color, the specific palettes for each season. Then, fabric, what is it actually made of? And finally, there's that word again, silhouette, the basic shape of the garment. These are the levers they pull.
And that word silhouette is so important. It's really just the basic shape, the outline of your clothes. Is it an A-line that flares out? Is it an empire with a high waist? Or is it a straight column? This shape is the foundation for everything else.
And when you mix and match all those elements, color, fabric, and silhouette, you get the basic building blocks of any wardrobe. You've got your global staples, like dresses, blouses, and skirts, and you have traditional ensembles like the kurta salwar. They're all part of this modern fashion language.
And what's so incredible, especially when you look at a place like India with such a deep history, is that none of this stuff just disappears. The modern wardrobe isn't about replacing the old with the new. It's a blend, a mix of Mughal, British, and global styles all living together side by side.
So at the end of the day, our clothes are so much more than just clothes, right? They're like little time capsules. They tell the story of our past, our politics, our technology, our dreams, which really just leaves one final question. What story is your closet telling right now? And what will the clothes we're all wearing today say about us to the historians of the future?